So Neil, thanks for being there.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me.
You just mentioned a very interesting thing that I think we can directly continue the discussion on being an expat, if you don't mind.
No,
how this transformed yourself, and yeah, really the full impact from A to B. Just go.
You know, my husband and I left the United States basically for political reasons. My father's from Germany originally and left on the Kindertransport. He was one of the Jewish kids rescued by the British in 1939. And as the son of a German refugee, I'm entitled to a German passport. And I got my passport back in 1989 because my husband then he's from Canada and was living illegally in the United States for the first few years. It was the height of the AIDS era. George Bush, the father, was president, and we did not feel secure in the US. And I had just come back from 6 months studying in London and thought, maybe we'll go to London. And for that reason, I got my German passport. We did not use it, got American citizenship, and we stayed. But every time there was an election that made us nervous, out came the passport. And this last November, the passport came out, and we decided it was time to leave, and the U.S. And we settled on Lisbon. We're in Portugal. And we moved. We found our apartment a year ago last week, and we moved last May. And so we're here.
Yeah. Okay.
And so it's very recent. And I also retired at the same time. And it was surprisingly difficult moving here, more than I expected. And I look back and I think I'm kind of an idiot. My parents were expats. My mother from England to America, my father first from Germany to England and then to America, where he re-met my mother. My mother's parents were expats from Poland to England just before World War I. And then in the economic slump in London, they then moved to the United States. So they did it twice. And it never occurred to me to think about their lives as expats. I thought the way my parents were when I was growing up was a reflection of their upbringings, their particular neuroses, a reflection of their marriage. And it never occurred to me that they were also expats and dealing with being in a place where they were wholly unfamiliar with everything and everyone was wholly unfamiliar with them. And I get here and I'm kind of shocked at how I was actually so excited about retiring and moving to Europe that I've been on an antidepressant many times in my life, but for the last year and a half, because I had a lot of illnesses last year and it sort of knocked me for a loop. So I went on an antidepressant. And about a year ago, I was so excited about having decided to move here and to retire that I came off my antidepressants.
Yeah.
And then I was here for a month and I was like, what the hell was I thinking? And the disorientation of being somewhere where I don't know anybody and nobody knows me. And I looked at that purely from the positive side. I can be anything. I can be anyone. And I experienced that when I was younger. I went to London, as I said, to live for 6 months to become a liver pathologist, my subspecialty in medicine. And then in 1999, I think it was, I went from New York to New Haven, Connecticut to do a sabbatical at Yale that was supposed to be 3 months of research, then turned into about a year and a half doing stem cell research. And in both cases, I had the excitement of reinventing myself. And I thought this would be like that. But in both cases, there were people I knew. So I had family in London. I had friends in Connecticut, and I grew up in Connecticut, and I would come home every weekend. So every weekend I would be back in my home. And those aspects I didn't have coming to Lisbon, and I'm older, which probably makes a difference too. And we were meeting people, and they had no idea who I was. They didn't know I was a doctor. They didn't know I was a writer. They didn't know I was a scientist. I was getting back into the gym pretty seriously, recovering from the last 2 years. I had a couple of strokes. Then I tore my shoulder and had to have a major shoulder repair, and then I had to have a hip replacement. So
beyond 30, right?
Yeah. Don't get old, is the message. And so I've been really focused on getting back in shape. And I have some tattoos, and in Portugal, people have lots of tattoos, and I sort of felt under-tattooed. So one way of asserting myself, I look back in the last year, was getting more tattoos. Okay, I'll put my idea of me on my skin. But someone we met who comes to help, a handyman around the house, Marx mentioned something about me being a doctor. And he said, "You're a doctor?" It's like, "Yeah." And he said, "You wrote, I Googled you and you've written a book." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's not who I thought you were." Right. And then there's the book. I said, "What did you think? Who do you think I am?" He goes, "Well, with all the exercising you do and all the tattoos, I thought you were a gangster."
Well, not a musician, see?
Not a musician, a gangster. And someone at the gym thought I was a Marine. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But it's very disorienting. And I started to think about how we build up our sense of self, not only by what we see in the mirror and what we project, but far more potently by how we see people respond to us. And even had I not moved countries, just retiring so that 5 or 6 days a week, I would be going to my office in the hospital and I would interact with, I guess 20 to 80 people on a day, even just nodding hello in the hallway. We don't even know anything about each other, but we recognize each other. And that constant subtle or not subtle reaffirmation of I'm this person who spends his time in this way, is known by this many people for these things. No one view of me captures the whole thing, and some may not have very much of me at all. But when I move through my day, the whole kaleidoscope of reactions I have from people affirms who I think I am. And it was very disorienting to me to come here and have no external affirmation other than my husband, who's trying hard to deal with the fact that I've retired and now I'm suddenly in his face all day long. So, which is why I now have this office, because he needed me to get out of the house.
Yes, go out of the house. Yeah. I share office with my wife, so currently she's not here. That's good. But I mean, for sharing the office too. This is an interesting point because I was, my mom loves Hans-Jörg Gadamer. I'm not sure if you have ever heard of him. So I wrote a very small piece on him because he also had this idea that we need others to reflect back on us to find out who we are.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so he was doing this on a more philosophical level, but you also wrote on. I mean, you are a pathologist. You discovered the interstitium, which is eventually the room we are currently needing. Yeah, or the interstitium being the I don't know, the metaphor for the human ether or whatever. So to connect to connect between ourselves. And on the other hand, this is how it came. You wrote this paper on non-linearity, complexity, quantization in biology, bringing this together for quantum. And I think these disciplines need definitely to talk more to each other. There's this quantum biology, and yeah, just go. Yeah.
Well, and additionally, as I write about in the book, these are spiritual questions too.
Yes.
And
yeah.
I actually gave a Zen talk to my Zen group because I'm a Zen Buddhist, I'm a meditator.
Yeah.
Back in New York online a few months ago, we talk about in Buddhism the self having not existing. There's no reifiable self to be found anywhere. Mm-hmm. And the more you interrogate that emotionally, intellectually, mm-hmm. etc., mm-hmm. you realize how interconnected, interdependent each of us is with everything around us. Mm-hmm. We are not bounded by our skin. And from a complexity theory standpoint, which I've written about a lot too, the nature of our boundaries depends on our perspectives and scales and how we're examining. So, we talk in Zen practice about this loss of self as this thing, as this experience, not a thing, as an experience that we're aiming towards in our contemplative practice. And people often think of that as a bliss state. Mm-hmm. Oh, if I can lose my sense of self and feel myself being one with all existence, that will be blissful. Well, it often is, mm-hmm. but it's also sometimes terrifying mm-hmm. and really disturbing. Mm-hmm. And, this expat experience of mine is like, oh, this is the fear and terror part of it. I feel lost. Mm-hmm. I look in the mirror and I don't understand who I'm seeing because I don't have people reflecting me back mm-hmm. at me as you were describing. Mm-hmm. And feeling abstracted like that. I said to you earlier, my parents were expats, my grandparents were expats. So why any of this should be a surprise to me?
Yes.
Like, well, someone wasn't paying attention. My mother, her two best friends mm-hmm. were, I thought growing up, these two friends of hers in particular, they were so important because they just had, there was something about them that they were just belonged together in this mm-hmm. close-knit friendship. But I realized one of them, who was my godmother, actually, my mother grew up in London and then Northampton, England during the war, and they came to Hartford, Connecticut, mm-hmm. and when they moved to the US. And this woman was someone my father had known in England. And looking back, she was the only British woman my mother knew in Hartford, Connecticut. And I know when I meet a real New Yorker here in Lisbon, oh my God, the joy. There are so many assumptions we have in common. We don't have to translate ourselves for each other. Yeah. The ease of recognition is so profoundly comfortable. And then the other person, Mark and I were invited to dinner by a Portuguese couple. And we were nervous about it, and we didn't know how much we had in common with these people. It turned out to be a wonderful evening. And instead of being, drinks for an hour or two, turned into dinner for 4 hours. And we finally stopped talking because it was too late. And we went out onto the street after and realized this was a huge watershed moment for us because, we're not going to be on the outside of Lisbon society forever. To some extent, we always will be. We'll never be fully fluent in Portuguese, I suspect, at our age. But we had been invited in. And the other friend of my mom's, who she's really close to, and she's the only one who's still alive. She's 93, sharp as a tack, back in Connecticut. She and her husband were the first American couple who made friends with my parents.
Okay.
And that was after being, and that was after being there for a few years. And I suddenly realized, such fundamental things about my parents, why these friends were so important to them. It wasn't just because they got along. It was because they were major watershed moments in being recognized, because they were expats. So this idea, it's a social recognition, it's a cellular recognition. I think about when I always go to bed before Mark does. Our clocks are different, so I'm 2 hours, 3 hours ahead of him to sleep, and I'm 2 or 3 hours ahead of him to wake up.
Okay, good.
And usually I sleep pretty well.
Yeah.
So I go right to sleep. But if I'm having a hard time sleeping for any reason, when he comes to bed, I fall asleep. And I like to refer to him as my sleeping pill. And I think there's this notion that, so we'll back up a second. So there's this idea that hearts, living, beating hearts, entrain to an electromagnetic field, the beating of the pulsing of an electromagnetic field. If the heart is placed in that field. But hearts are also electromagnetic. They generate their own fields. And apparently are so exquisitely sensitive to each other that two living hearts being brought into proximity within feet are already starting to entrain to each other.
To get to sync, So the electromagnetic component of the biofield, so to say.
Right. And so the entire body is electromagnetic. We each generate a bioelectromagnetic field that is exquisitely sensitive, and will respond to any external electromagnetic field like that of someone else's body. And when you are in a close physical relationship with someone for days, weeks, months, years, and I've become very aware of partly through some Tai Chi practice over the last few years, partly through some shamanic stuff, of getting a sense of my energetic connection. When I wake up in the morning and I'm next to Mark after a whole night sleeping, and then I remove myself, I feel like something's lost. And now that I'm retired and don't have to go back to the office, I get up in the morning when I get up, but then I go back to bed for a morning nap or doze or even just 20 minutes. And I can feel the reunification of this field connection he and I have. So it doesn't surprise me when I hear about long-term couples and one of them dies and the other one doesn't live very long after. And the Japanese actually have a medical term for that, referring to like your heart can't function in the absence of the heart you've integrated with. So on very subtle levels, we are who we are because of how the world and other living beings connect back to us. And I don't think any of these are separate concepts. I think they're all just different facets of the same kind of thing. And it functions on the social level too.
And I think this is the challenge that I'm at the border to becoming fully idealist. I'm not yet ready to jump. No, because I mean, I think as a human intelligent being, you start being holistic. I mean, you're born, you're in the and then you come out of, you have your own body, and then you just, wow, there are different things. You get dualist. Otherwise, you just wouldn't survive, I guess, at least in this body. And then you have to learn the way, and then you do either you keep in the separation, and we see where this leads these days, or you are a bit more intelligent as a society, and you transcend this egomanic thing. And I guess what I'm trying to do is help whoever wants to be helped to realize that we are more than just a body. And I think if I read your book and listened correctly, this working with Buddhist traditions helped very much. Now the question is, coming back also to this expat feeling and this terrifying if you get lost, and then saying that there is more than just our body. Maybe we are entangled with our materials. I mean, we are all star seeds. But did you experience also that it depends really on things like if there is a river in proximity, or if there is if you sleep the correct alignment to the Earth magnetic field? I have this when I'm in a hotel. I can't sleep. I just need to turn sideways, which is a bit.
Oh wow!
Did you pay attention?
I haven't thought about that, and I haven't been aware of it. And you know, my conditioning to sleep properly oriented on a bed probably has. I haven't opened myself to that experience, but it's funny you mentioned the water thing.
Yeah.
Because the single thing I love most about the place we found to live here is we're a block and a half from the water. The Theise River in Portugal, and it's an estuary, and it's vast, like the Hudson River is in New York, which I also lived close to.
Okay.
And a very, very big piece of my adjustment to living here was getting a bicycle and going to the water and riding along the water and sitting by the water. And I can feel everything be okay while I'm there. And I've never really thought about why that is. Part of my interpretation has always gone to being able to see the horizon and the sky. But is there something more subtle that I haven't been paying attention to? Now it's funny, as soon as you say that, I feel like, oh, there's an aspect to like when I go back to bed and Mark's there sleeping and I re-enter the field that his body is making. And there's a distance. I have to be a certain distance close to him.
So it's really electromagnetic.
It feels
squared
like
distance, so it's physical field.
It has physical parameters. It's not just an idea. And I can move in and out of it. Sometimes, as I've become aware of it, it was really after the stroke, particularly 2 years ago, because that was the first time I didn't have to go anywhere in the morning for an extended period of time. And so I would still wake up, but then I would come back to bed and he's sleeping there. And I was so well rested, I wasn't really sleeping because there was nothing else to do but rest. The fatigue post-stroke was really profound. So I would just lie there and I could play with it. I could move in and out and feel the intensity changing depending on my distance from him. The river may, now I have to explore this. The river may function in a similar way for me.
Go explore it, and we do a second talk next.
Right.
And because I think another component that just came to physical proximity, etc. So I'm grown up with transporting my creativity, whatever, to Stofftiere, so to plush animals, so the stuffed animals. And they still live, so they always disturb my thinking. But and what I've seen is that apparently they capture something of you. I'm not sure if this is the shamanic putting needles in, or you transform your soul into the stuffing or whatever. I doubt that this is. I mean, it's not scientific to talk about this in a Western term, but in principle, you animate these things by giving your part of your personality to these things. So you attach yourself to carriers of energy fields, maybe, if we can talk about this.
I mean,
I'm just go.
One's home. You live in your home, and you become part of that environment, and it becomes part of you. And part of it's social, like how did you arrange the furniture? Part of it is physical. If you care about your environment, you choose to make it comfortable for yourself, potentially, therefore, for others. it's always been a mystery. Mark and I, one of the things that where we fit, I mean, we're so not alike in so many different ways, but one of the ways, the opposites attract. But one of the ways both of us have always made homes for ourselves when we left our parents' homes and could start to make our own environments. We both had rooms, or dormitory rooms or apartments in which people wanted to come be there and often would not leave. It's like the evening's over now. I got things to do, and people are just hanging out. And together, even more so, it's become this commonplace for people to talk about how special our homes are. And wherever we go, we recreate that in some fashion. And it takes a little time to get it right. But it's just sort of jostling around the edges. And there definitely feels to be something more than just we know how to design a space well. And it's I mean, people we know who don't know each other, his family, my family, friends we've met, people come into our homes and generally will say how comfortable they feel, how at home they feel, and how safe they feel often. And I can't say how it is that we did that, but I think it's interesting that we also did that separately before we even met each other. We had those capacities, and then together it's just sort of exponential. Already our home here, we don't know that many people, but everyone who comes in is sort of like, oh my God, you've only been here for how long? It feels like you've been here forever.
And is this, and I'm just wondering, because there are so many different ways to steer the conversations, but this feeling like a sacred place, or a safe place by, let's say, resonance. So is it maybe that you just have a fundamental frequency we initially discussed cosmic energy, so Schumann resonance, for example. So we have this Schumann resonance frequency. So eventually you're just perfectly in tune with your arrangement of whatever it is at home, including maybe smell. I don't know. I'm just exploring smell, but
he's
also
a
soundscape
maker
or whatever.
and a chef, so definitely it's multi-sensory.
Yes, bacalao.
Yeah. Well, no. Let's not discuss Portuguese food. It's not a good match for me. But, I think all of these things are real, and the fact that we can't necessarily, in a clear way, by contemporary Western scientific standards, explain them doesn't mean that they don't exist. It just points to the incompleteness of our theories. When I started getting into shamanic practice, which came out of left field, I was not looking for any sort of shamanic thing, but I met somebody who then turned out to be a shaman and sort of,
why not,
pushed me into an initiation. And now here I am several years later, and it's part of my practice. The most important lesson he and his shamanic teacher have conveyed to me is to pay attention to one's intuitions and to honor them. Just because there isn't an intellectual explanation for why you feel something does not invalidate it. And if you pay attention to it, things reveal themselves. And this idea of intuition being central and key, I've always wanted to do science. I went to medical school in part because I wasn't a particularly good scientist. I didn't creatively come up with hypotheses. I didn't train in a laboratory. My brain is pretty good and flexible and nimble, but but I didn't know how to do science per se. And then I trained more, and so I started to learn some things in my medical career. I was an academic, so I was starting to, as a pathologist, diagnostic pathologist, I'm looking at human tissues all the time, and you see patterns of disease, and you can make hypotheses. But this was very concrete training within my residency program and medical school. But then something shifted in my 30s, and my brain just opened up and became this engine of hypothesis making and insight. And I can tell the difference when I have an idea. There are ideas where I'm sitting with a resident teaching them, and we see something on a slide and we don't know why it looks like that. And I try and teach my students, well, okay, you see this, you don't understand it. How can you figure out what it is? And we'll think up experiments and, and when I think about those sorts of things, I don't think, I don't know what the answer will be. I know what the question is. But we'll design some experiments, and it could be this one, and could be this, or it could be something else. None of it will surprise me. I'll just go, okay, now we know that piece. Let's go further. But there are times where I just know what something is. And I don't have to do the experiment to know what the outcome will be. I will do that because I want to do the science. But there's an intuitive thing. I don't know where those things come from. And my most important discoveries and ideas or methods have always come to me while sitting on the meditation cushion. When I'm getting out of the way and letting something I might call intuition just well up and show me what there is. I think intuition like that is, my experience of that is real. I can show you my publication list.
We can
and I can show you which ideas came to me that way. And if you look at the number of publications on each topic as reflective of the importance of it, those ideas built my career and led me to important things. So intuition, whatever we mean by that, is profoundly important. And people in our contemporary culture don't honor intuition in that way. However, I have a whole chapter or more in the book on Gödel, exactly, who is inarguably, definitively showed that the most rigorous way we can describe the world, formal mathematics and formal logic, we cannot prove everything that we know to be true. Some things we can only know to be true through intuition. Which, if you'll pardon my language, is a big fuck you to contemporary Western reductive science, which says, no. If we have the right theory, we will explain everything. And what Gödel unavoidably confirmed is that there will always be things we cannot prove that we can still know to be true through intuition.
And I think the funny part is when I just read your book recently because it's not so very it's not so very old.
Yes, exactly.
But when I was doing my studies back, 25 years or so, and I had also these walks. So instead of I didn't meditate, I did walk in the woods. So when I was walking in the woods, and then at one moment in time, it felt like a lightning bolt or whatever. And I said, everything is feedback loops. And I mean, you're writing about this, so feedback loops and number of scales. So I think I had a bit, I didn't publish it, but I had the same thoughts. And then, Orwell, so the things that you always knew, and you finally read them in the book, they're even more convincing. Right. So you said you have these intuitions by going into Zen meditation in principle. So is this a recommendable channel, or should we say complementing drug discovery? and yeah, with shamanic practices, or is the because I think praying works, so you can even pray for someone who doesn't know, and apparently if things are supposed to be, the things get better, or you can take the dedicated approach and say, no, I'm going into Zen. I'm not sure if you're setting intentions before or not, but
no,
okay, so you just let it fully flow.
Yeah, part of it for me, the Zen practice, all the main methods of Zen meditation are trying to set aside our attachment to the discriminating mind, shall we say. It's not stopping your thoughts. No one can stop.
Yeah, you just remove your filters and open.
But you don't attach to the thoughts. And as you get into practice, your mind wanders off into doing the laundry, and when you notice you've done that, you go, not now. Come back to whatever your point of contemplation is. It can be the simplest Zen practice is just following your breath. Come back to your breath. Come back to your breath. What the monkey mind goes to, it might be the laundry. It might be the smell of cooking from down the hall that's either delicious or repellent. It might be in New York City, the sound of cars honking on the street. It might be someone you miss. It might be a dream you had. It could be anything. Your mind can go to anything. Well, I spend a lot of my time doing science, so sometimes my mind bounces to a science thing. When that happens in meditative practice, sometimes it bounces to something I hadn't seen before. And I'm like, oh, that's a new idea. I don't stop and write it down. I try not to pursue it. Sometimes I can't help myself because it's just such a new, cool idea. Which means, I'm an undisciplined meditator. But I've gotten to know that, like, it'll be there when I get up. I don't have to worry about that. It'll be there. So I can trust that and then come back. But something happened in my late 30s where that went up exponentially. And it was such an unpleasant experience that I was looking for it to stop. I couldn't understand what was happening, and I hoped it would go away because it was exhausting because ideas kept coming, more ideas. And this was when I was on sabbatical doing stem cell stuff, and it was a very, very explosive moment in my scientific career. This was the idea that adult human stem cells could do anything. And in the US, it became very important because
it was a breakthrough paper,
Yeah, it was a breakthrough paper and led to George Bush's address to the nation limiting embryonic stem cell research. Well, careful what you wish for. And suddenly all the anti-abortion lobbyists in the country were like, he's our hero, because I gave them the ammunition to shut down embryonic stem cell research, which was not my intention. In the days after his talk, I started getting phone calls from right-wing Christian anti-abortion groups in America asking me if I would come give them a talk. And finally, I realized the answer was, do you really want this New York Jewish Buddhist homosexual liver pathologist to come talk to your church group? And then the phone call suddenly stopped. So, but there was something that shifted. And the only explanation I have for that is that I had been a serious Zen student at that point for over 10 years, and that the practice of Zen opened me up somehow. And it hasn't turned off. I've gotten used to it. It still can be exhausting at times. But you asked, so, should we make meditation like part of discovery practice. I don't think there's anyone who couldn't benefit from some sort of meditative practice, but I don't think it's the only way to do it.
It's not the only way.
It's no. And what people will respond to is very idiosyncratic. And so this comes back to being what seems like a spiritual question, but can have very practical, pragmatic day-to-day implications. In Vedic traditions, they talk about the different paths of spiritual practice. There's contemplative practice, meditating. There's scholarly practice, like, being a Talmud scholar in Jewish tradition. There's a path of service, being of benefit to others. There's a devotional practice. I tried to get both Mark and my mom to meditate when I was in my high enthusiasm mode. And my mom wasn't having it. And in fact, she said to me, with all the meditating you're doing, I think you'd be less anxious. And I said, well, imagine what I'd be like if I weren't meditating.
Yes.
But it took me a while to realize that watching her light the Sabbath candles on a Friday night, she had a profound devotional practice.
Ritual practice, yeah.
Yeah, that was transformative for her. This is actually my next book that we're in the process of finishing up. About her last years, she lost her short-term memory, was in home hospice for 6 months. We thought she was going to die. She stopped walking, talking, and eating. And then she started walking, talking, and eating again, but she continued what had started 6 months before, which was talking to dead people. And then first people she knew, and then people discovered apparently who were dead, apparently found like, oh, we can go talk to her. Then she started having out-of-body experiences and then spontaneous enlightenment experiences. And she died 6 months later, 6 years later, in a bliss bubble at home, in a bliss state.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's the book I'm working on now. The stuff I couldn't put about consciousness in the first book. But so that was through her devotional practice. And Mark, he says, oh, I don't have a spiritual practice. It doesn't interest him. But to me, if you watch him prepare a meal for somebody, it's a path of service. He's so utterly in the moment of creating beauty for people through his meal preps. I mean, his dinners are kind of legendary amongst people. Oh, I got to go to Mark and Neil's house for dinner.
I need to invite you guys to.
Ooh, yeah. So you'll have to come to Lisbon. And for me, I have a devotional side, apparently, and I have the contemplative side. Both work for me in some fashion. But people can have great insights into the nature of reality simply by showing up and doing good work in a soup kitchen, feeding people. It's a path to great insight. So it's a matter of finding, not ignoring the spiritual side of thing, but also sort of, again, it's an intuitive thing. What practice brings out that sense of connection and insight? If you had to pick one for a scientist, I'd say contemplative practice, because chances are they are contemplatives already in some fashion, doing science. It's, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, I can't know who I would be without my Zen practice, but I have little doubt that what I've accomplished has been fostered or enhanced or accelerated by that practice.
So it's in principle the good thing, follow your bliss, and then if you have your bliss somewhere, I mean, experience via Zen meditation. Because I think my son's our younger son, he has Down syndrome, and by this I always see he has no gene or habit or pattern to have the concept of evil. And I mean, if you just get rid of this concept, there might be people who are evil. I mean, what energy? What energy is it? And he's really following the bliss and radiating love everywhere. And I think this radiation part, we initially talked about the aura. I'm not sure if this is radiating out or in, but this biofield.
Well, it's always both.
Of this biofield, as you mentioned, the heart, very strong, let's say, love vibes, however the chord sounds, but eventually it's just overtones, and then you just radiate this. And I see that wherever he goes, we've been in Berlin in these zones where you have people like you, so and I was a bit afraid, and he just went there, oh, fries, check, boom, and picked one. And I said, oh God, we're going to be dead. And the guy said, oh, you're my friend, bong. See, and he, just by radiating this bliss, this is yeah.
My mother was, this is something I obviously talk about in the book. She was a highly anxious woman for most of my life. I used to, so much so that in fourth grade, I remember telling some of my friends at school that, sort of excusing her behavior because she was so nervous, that during the Blitz, a bomb dropped on her head during the Blitz. And ever since then, she's been a little bit off. But that did not actually happen. But you might have thought it did. And but in these last 6 years, she lost all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to her, and the basic neurological thing was, I don't even know whether calling it dementia is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
She lost her short-term memory. It was a pinpoint sort of loss.
Mm-hmm.
She knew who everyone was. Her long-term memory was completely intact. But she was a little bit like she'd been smoking pot, which I had always wanted to see, but never got to. She just couldn't remember 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
And I said to her at some point, you're even smiling when you're sleeping now. How do you stay so happy?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, I no longer worry about the future, and I can't remember the past. So all I have is the now. And when you live in the now, you're happy.
Wow.
And her home, even more than our home, has becomes a place of refuge for people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, people would enter her home and they would enter into her bliss state.
Mm-hmm.
And even after she died, the woman who bought her apartment, and she lived 3 blocks from us. This woman runs the, she's a American-born but practitioner of Chinese medicine, and she runs the graduate education program for the Pacific School of Oriental Medicine, which is the largest Chinese medicine school in North America. And she said she'd been looking for apartments, and she walked into my mother's apartment and she just felt. And she didn't know at that point the history of what had just transpired for the last 6 years, because my mother never left the apartment again after that.
Mm-hmm.
She just was always there.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I walked into the apartment and I felt your mother. And once I met you and I found out about your mother, I continue to feel her. I even hear her talking to me sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And like, oh God, I waited so long for my mother to leave, and it turns out she's still around. And lots of people feel her presence and report it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
I just saw this woman at their annual conference. She brought me in to talk about some of this stuff to their annual North American meeting. And I said, do you still hear my mother? She said, oh, I heard her last week. It had been the year anniversary of her father's death.
Yes.
And Jews light a candle on the anniversary of the death. And so for the first time, a year had passed, she lit a candle, and she heard my mother go, good girl.
You're good. And this is so fascinating.
Like, that's exactly what my mother would have said.
Yeah, this ritual and then the access to the higher dimensions, because why should the vibrations go away? So in principle, they're just there, but just not as a body. And And the interesting fact that you mentioned this strong imprinting, in principle, it's a kind of imprinting of the goodness. You transform something into a, let's call it, mini sacred space eventually. I'm not sure if it's really a sacred. I mean, it's a sacred space.
What is a sacred space? What do we mean by sacred? I think this is maybe one of the best ways to define it.
Yeah, and I had the same feeling when in my grandmother's house, there is this bench in the garden. And when I was there, so she was always standing there with my granddad, and this is the place of peace. So this was really for me a peaceful place. So meanwhile, my mother lives there, and it's again the same feeling. It's really something that you feel this is where the universe is not so in conflict with itself, maybe. And
it's not always a positive thing.
Yeah.
I remember there are places you go, and there's a negative thing that has imprinted.
Yeah.
I went to Mark for many years was traveling in Southeast Asia, importing handwoven silks and handmade housewares from there, and went to Cambodia many times, and he brought me a couple of times. And I remember when we went to visit Tuol Sleng, which was the torture prison in Phnom Penh from the Pol Pot years.
Yeah.
Unimaginably horrible things happened there to thousands of people over a condensed period of time. And I generally don't think of myself as sensitive, though obviously I've become more sensitive to things, but I stepped over the threshold. And this was basically a high school in a suburban part of Phnom Penh. Nothing special about it, but it was turned into this torture prison. And I stepped over the threshold onto the grounds and felt like the temperature dropped and something awful. And I went back with, so my father's parents were killed in the war, in World War II. Many cousins were killed. And I went back to visit the places where this happened. And some of my surviving cousins, their descendants, we all went together. And the eldest of my generation, you look at her, she's, like 4'10", and she's older, and you think, but she's this sturdy Dutch pig farmer, tough as nails, but really sweet. And she and I would go into these places and simultaneously just, you step over the threshold and something terrible. And she was way more sensitive to it than I was. And actually, in one of these places, I went by myself. So this is a very long story. I won't give you the whole thing. But basically, I found where my father's mother, my grandmother, was killed in the forests outside of Riga. Typical, mass grave shooting, middle of the night sort of thing. And I had an encounter there where I felt like I had met her. And in fact, my shamanic teacher was worried about me going to these places because he was afraid it was so dark for me. And without telling him what had happened the day before, when I found where she had been killed, I didn't know I had found where it happened. And he recognized that she was with me. I had literally found her there, and she had come back to the hotel with me. And she had two names she went by. And he said, you have, we were talking online. That's because he's in the military overseas somewhere. And I'm usually not allowed to know where, but and I'm not good at astral projection, so I can't just go talk to him on the astral plane. He can. He met my mother that way, but I can't. So we're talking online, and he says, you're not alone. And I said, what do you mean? He said, there's a woman with you. And I said, who is it? He said, well, I'm getting two different names. And then he told me my grandmother's two names. And it was her.
And then you had goosebumps, I guess, no?
Yeah. And then having been instructed to how to recognize her, I started to build up a sense of, is she with me? But I still thought, you know, I'm probably, because the scientist is always in operation.
Yes, tries to. Yeah,
Am I making this up? Am I talking myself into this? But how would he have known her names?
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I went back to meet these cousins for this reunion. It was the 80th anniversary of Kristallnacht. And my father's little village had invited all the descendants to come back for the anniversary. And we did. And it was a really important and profound thing. But it, on the night of the remembrance, we were standing on the site of my family's destroyed synagogue. And I'm speaking on behalf of my family, and these two German high school students whose English was really good are doing line-by-line translation of what I'm saying in English, and everyone's crying. I'm doing my job well. But we'd been there for 3 days. The whole time I'm thinking, have I brought my grandmother back to her home?
Yeah. Yes.
And I come off stage, and this elder cousin of mine takes my hand, and finally I'm like, in the moment, I'm like, I lean down over her and I say, do you believe in ghosts? She goes, of course I do. I said, well, I think I brought my grandmother back from Riga. And she said, I already knew that. And that played out for a couple of months before I created a ritual to help my grandmother move on, and she did.
She did?
She did. But there were other she didn't stay in Germany, she came home with me. This is in the next book I'm going to write. I'm going to tell this story. See, I told you it's a long story, but it's a good one. When I found where she had been killed, I had this vivid sense of, I feel like I've met her. Who my grandmother was always sort of this big mystery to me as a kid. My father would never talk about it. And I thought, but who was she at this moment that she died? And what I got a sense of was her regret that she had made all these wrong decisions that had led to this moment. She had sent my father away to England and never heard from him again, so I had no idea. She didn't send his older brother away to Amsterdam when she had the chance, because she couldn't send her other son away. What he told me later, because I knew him, was that had she sent him to Amsterdam, he would have been sent to Auschwitz and certainly would have been killed. But having kept him, he went to Riga, which was a work camp, and that gave him the chance to survive. So if she had chosen otherwise, and at this point, and she had lost her older son, her husband had disappeared into the work camp, and she felt she had made all the wrong decisions. But the fact is, she's the only one of her siblings and cousins who didn't lose a child.
So in principle, she regretted for having taken the wrong decisions, and by this having destroyed probabilities, etc. And in fact, she took the right decision.
She succeeded.
And did you tell her this, or?
Yeah. So she came back to New York with me, and by this time I'm feeling her more vividly. And then after a few days, she's gone. So I reach out to my shamanic teacher and I say, has she moved on? And he said, let me look around. He comes back a short while later. No, and this is after my mother died. No, your mother's taking her around to see the grandchildren. So, a couple of days later, I feel her back again. So I was there on Kristallnacht, which is the end of November, middle to end of November. The train to Riga from Dusseldorf that took all my family to Riga was the 10th to 12th of December. So I wrote to all the cousins and I said, you know, she died thinking she had full of regret. So on the anniversary of the train ride for 2 days, light candles and put out pictures. It's always a little hard to talk about. of all of her descendants. And there are a lot of them. Because my father's elder brother met a Polish woman in camp and survived and married her after the war, and they're Catholic, so they had lots of kids.
Oh.
And their kids had kids. And so we did that. And that's when she left. And I haven't felt her since then. And that was 7 years ago.
So in principle, a deliberating statement that she sensed there was something to do, and then
that she had not made the wrong decisions, that she had saved everybody by what she had chosen. And so, now, how do I know any of this? Intuition. But I'm particularly latched onto the things where I have independent corroboration because I'm still a scientist. How could my army friend, the shaman, have known not only one name, but both names?
But everything. Yeah.
And he said, when he told me, he goes, I don't know, it's funny, I'm getting two different names. Because it was weird to him. He was like, why can't I get one name? It was because she had two. My elder cousin going, oh, I already knew that. And then the fact that I had this vivid sensation of her, but this could have been me telling myself a story. And then we performed this ritual. And so the thing about writing about my mother's special experiences in the new book, the whole thing, I said at the time that it was a little bit like she was my little consciousness laboratory. And she was.
Mothers are there for.
Right, no, exactly. And every strange thing that happened to her, I have at least one completely independent, inexplicable confirmation that this is in fact what was going on. So
when is it coming out? Okay, wrong question.
I'm waiting for my editor to get back to me with, she has the full.
It's written?
It's written, yeah. And any day now, she said she would be reaching out to me to do the final edits. So it depends on, on days when I'm confident, I think, oh, we'll edit it in a couple of months. On days when I'm not confident, I'll be rewriting the whole thing. It's somewhere in between, I'm sure. So we'll see. I'm hoping for early 2027. I'm hoping a year from now or so. It will come out.
This takes so long. So we've once written just one chapter in a book, and this took 1 year to just review.
Well, and modern publishing, even once it's finished, we could finish it in 2 months, but then it's got to be copy edited. Then the book has to be designed. Then it has to be typeset, and then you have to start planning the rollout and the publicity and the blah 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 blah, and then they actually have to be made and shipped and distributed. So I've learned part of being an expat in Portugal. I've learned not to expect things to work on my schedule. And so I'm surprisingly at ease with the idea that it could be another year or more before the book comes out. Parts of it I have read in public. Another Dharma talk I gave, my mother had these end-of-life visions when she first became ill and started talking to dead people.
Mine did.
And that I've read that aloud online.
Okay. Because
you can. I have a website from the first book, neiltheiseofficial.com, and there's a Dharma talk thing. And if you go to the Dharma talks, they're recorded because they're online now, post-COVID. And there's one on end-of-life visions, and that's a segment of my mom's book. I also talk about it. Do you know the telepathy tapes?
Yes. Are you on the telepathy tapes?
Yeah. So I did 2 episodes in the second season. One on energy healing. Which is episode 9, I think, or
should be
8.
after 6 because I've stuck. I currently am on my to listen part. I'm on part 6. So.
So I'm in there talking about interstitium stuff, what relates to all this, and then she brought me back to talk about telepathy and cognitive decline in the elderly, I think that's episode 11.
Okay, I have to listen to this one.
Yeah. So I talk about this stuff with my mom, things I didn't mention here.
Because
so I'm starting to put this material out there, even in advance of the book.
Yeah, because this is really transformative. And I mean, my grandmother, she was also, I always thought she had a direct line to God. So I was, you need to pray for me. And then this always worked. And when she was dying at our home, the family was also there. And my uncle, they had a kind of mother-son relation with all its complexities. And at one moment in time, he was sitting at the dinner and he was just laughing out super loud for forgiving the history in principle. So just saying, come on, let's have a laugh about this. And the same moment she died, the same moment, more or less, I was with our son, with George. He was in the hospital in a deep, so after birth, he was not so super well. I was there protecting his soul.
Mm-hmm.
Then he opened his eyes. I saw very deep, very ancient. It was a bit terrifying, as you said, experience. Then he fell back into his coma. I called my mom and said, "Did grandma die?" And she, yes. So I think there was this kind of not soul transfer, but portal, whatever thing. So I'm really keen to listen to your story from
this one is in the book, but it's not in it. But for your podcast, I'll give you this one. So Mark, he pats me on the back and goes, "Yes, whatever you need to believe, honey." He's, whatever. He knows I think about strange things. And had been around for he was very intimately involved with my mom and with her care in those last years. But her last week, we knew she was about to go. We didn't know precisely when it was going to happen, but she was clearly ready to go and totally contented. Barely communicative, no eating, looked like a skeleton. He and I both in that last week went to visit her at one point or another and thought she had died. And then leaned in really closely to see, is there any breath here? And her eyes open. Yeah, still here, not dead yet. But Friday morning, and my dream was, I had said for years, I just want to receive a call when I wake up in the morning from one of her home attendants telling me she's gone. I wanted it to be that kind of thing. Friday morning, the phone rings. It's the home attendant telling me she's gone. I tell Mark and he says, "Oh my God." I said, "What?" He said, "Well, I've been awake here for the last 20 minutes. And all of a sudden I felt like your mother was in the room." And in my head, I said, "Sarah, are you here?" And I heard her say, "Yes, I am, darling." And then the phone rang. And I said, "So in this moment, you vividly felt her presence and you heard her voice confirming that she was here." Yeah, I felt her and I heard her. And I said, "You are so screwed." Although I used the F word. I said, "You are so screwed because 5 minutes from now, you're going to deny that happened.
Yeah.
But you told me." So you're not going to be able to deny that it happened. Yeah. And ever since then, he does not roll his eyes anymore. And I feel like my mother was so smart. She could have made herself apparent to me.
Yeah, but she didn't.
But then he would have said, "Whatever you need to believe, honey." Yeah.
Fascinating. Cool.
Yeah. The world, I don't find these things comforting. People who are, resolute materialist atheist type, like, you just want to feel better about the world. Opiate of the masses kind of thing. And I'm like, no, it would be really much safer and more pleasant if you knew when you died it was over.
Yeah.
There's too much potential scary shit that can happen when the world is this rich in life and consciousness and meaning and layers. But it's way more interesting.
It's way more fun, to do.
Yeah. To live in a world where magic happens.
Yeah.
Do
you think that one of my ambitions was always to build an enlightenment enhancer? Yeah, for those poor.
Why did I start Zen?
Why did I
want to
start?
become enlightened?
I doubt that there is a way, that there is a fast track on, of course. But do you think there is anything one can share? I mean, we did, but one can share with the skeptics. I mean, skeptics, not the hardcore by definition skeptics who want to be skeptic for the sake of being skeptic and ignoring evidence, but rather for the I want to believe but I don't know how. So for those people, except for this, as you mentioned, for your husband, there was this subjective, oh shit, this is true. So it's a gift. So do you think you can trigger it, or do you need to be open or sending signals, or how can we make people?
Even if you're open to it, you have to believe it when it happens.
Yeah.
One of the things that, no, so I'm very fond of saying, people don't change their minds. Change happens one funeral at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by and large, that's true. But at the same time, things can happen that are can shake you so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very fond, one of my practices is whenever I meet someone who's recently had a death
mm-hmm.
of someone they were close to,
mm-hmm.
I always ask, so have they visited? And I'd say about 2/3 of the time,
mm-hmm.
they're surprised I asked the question and tell me yes,
mm-hmm.
and can be very precise about what their experience was
mm-hmm.
and how vivid it was.
Mm-hmm.
Even if to an outside observer it was subtle. Well, how do you know that was them visiting? They just know.
Yes.
That's a high percentage.
Yeah.
And people who have had that experience, if we don't talk about it, it will fade.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm sure 5 minutes later, if I hadn't told Mark, you can't let this fade because you told me,
mm-hmm.
it would have faded into a memory that he would have doubted.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was emphasized by me. So affirming people's experiences by being willing to talk about it, it's not that we convince other people, but we short circuit the ways, and we have the potential to short circuit how we have trained in our society to deny these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like making it difficult for people to ignore their own experiences.
Uh-huh.
And I think that the more we talk about it, this is when I talked about the end of life visions, one of the things that there's a book that came out a few years ago called Death is But a Dream by Christopher Kerr, Kerr.
Mm-hmm.
He's the head of Hospice Buffalo in New York State. It's a big hospice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the only large-scale prospective study of people on their deathbeds reporting their deathbed visions of
mm-hmm.
dead people appearing to them.
Mm-hmm.
And we've all heard stories about that happening.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have had experiences of grandma was dying and she was talking to her dead husband. And we generally assume in our culture that's in the process of dying, you're hallucinating, wishful thinking, whatever. But it turns out that 88.1% in 1,200 people interviewed had deathbed visions.
Yes. Yeah.
And they aren't so easily dismissed because of how transformative they are in the moment for those people. There's something profound going on. It's not just I'm making up a story for myself. And sometimes the stories are very unpleasant. There's this one he tells about someone who died years later, but was on the beaches at the D-Day invasion, and who were coming to him with the dead soldiers on the beach. And he was terrified. He wouldn't go to sleep at night in his last days. And then they come in one morning and he's perfectly fine. and okay with dying, and he died the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, what happened? He said, the ghosts appeared, but one of them stepped forward and said, I'm going to get choked up again. Don't you understand? We're here for you.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't do anything wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wasn't afraid anymore, and he died.
Mm-hmm. So this is this transporting the unconditional love, right? To that you just have to.
And that's exactly what I taught. Bingo, you went right for it. That's exactly what I talk about in my Dharma talk. What's going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's as the dying brain filters the big C consciousness
mm-hmm.
into our small c selves.
Mm-hmm.
As that filter starts to get fuzzy,
mm-hmm.
We hear a radio getting out of tune as being static.
Mm-hmm.
But static isn't less information, it's in fact more information.
Yeah.
And if your brain becomes porous to that foundational consciousness, which in and of itself emanates compassion, then you're going to receive that, but you still have a human mind that has to make a story as to what it is you're experiencing.
Too many dimensions then.
So you'll cloak it in a figure that represents that compassion to help you understand what it is. And so it becomes a dead friend or spouse or child or pet. There's a number of children in this series, in this research project. He didn't exclude anybody. And the children mostly hadn't known anyone who had died other than a pet. And it's the pet that shows up. So that, when I can build a hypothesis as to what's going on, that you went right for it. The thing is that these aren't exceptional experiences. It's nearly 90% of people. And he acknowledges that the remaining 10%, half of them aren't able to speak and be interviewed. And the other half, maybe simply, so many people don't talk about it when they're having these experiences because they're afraid they're going crazy, or that people will say they're going crazy. And so if that's true, then there's all sorts of stuff we've conditioned ourselves not to see in our culture. That in prior cultures and in other cultures, these were normal. These were normative things.
Or in shamanic practices where if you take ayahuasca, I have not yet. in principle, it's supposed just to remove exactly these filters, or DMT, whatever, to at least weaken this filter.
I tried ayahuasca a few years ago. I was hoping it would help me go out of body. Number one, you don't go into these sorts of things expecting an outcome. Everyone in the room was having wild experiences to the ayahuasca. I had nothing. The shaman gave me a second dose. I had twice as much as anyone else. Still nothing. Bored out of my mind, lying there on a hardwood floor, vague green sparkles. But other than that, I was like, I could be home in bed with my husband. What am I doing here? And then at some point at 2 or 3 in the morning, I had to pee. So I went to the bathroom and I turned on the light switch in the bathroom. And immediately it was like matrix green lights streaming through the room. And I felt the presence of Mother Aya approaching. And I thought to myself, here we go. This is it. The big moment. And a voice in my ear speaks. It's a woman's voice. And she says, this practice is not for you. And all the green lights go out and I'm alone in the bathroom sitting on the toilet. I was like, really?
Oh, you don't need it. You already have it. Oh.
Well, I don't feel like I've had it. You always want more. I want what they're having. So that was me and ayahuasca. I did worry that, did she mean all plant medicines or just her plant medicine? So last Halloween, I was invited on a mushroom journey. And I had some very profound experiences, but it was very clear, all plant medicines, this is not my path. In the middle, I was like,
if you're already on Zen, why do you need plants? You're already the next level.
Because I want it quicker.
Yeah, sure.
How many thousands of hours do I have to sit on a fucking cushion, you know, to get a glimpse of what someone gets in a night? But those glimpses often fade quickly.
Yeah.
And the slow and steady, you know, the integration part is as important, if not more important, than the primary insight, whether it's LSD, ayahuasca, mescaline, peyote, you know.
Yeah.
Like Mark's experience of my mom, he had a very vivid, beyond material experience, but he would have ignored it within 5 minutes. It's very easy to have a profound ayahuasca experience, for example, and then it becomes a story you tell yourself.
Yeah. You still see the credit card transactions for the flights, but so this was really super first talk, I hope. So I hope to, I mean, we have so much things. We didn't talk about the interstitium. We didn't talk about complexity theory. I want to bring this biological quantum constant. So I think there is definitely room for next. Just before we stop, is there something that you would hope people ask you more?
You asked me to think of something, I think, or was it someone else who asked me this question? You know, it's really hard for me to answer because the question I want to be asked is the one I haven't thought of yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you did that a few times.
Oh,
today. My favorite part of giving talks or being on a podcast or something is the unexpected question that makes me have to think, oh, I'm not sure how I would answer that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how to answer this.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so, thanks a lot, Neil.
Sure, thank you. Good luck with everything. Keep me posted what you want or need, and I'm here.